The title of my story is The Game We Invented. It's the bottom of the 14th inning. The game was tied, and the sun was sweating. The sun was setting, and I was sweating. We were tense. Now, normally, baseball is a game that eliminates the element of time, but we were under a very strict schedule because Mom would be home in less than an hour, and we still hadn't done the chores. Now, the results of this game were enormously important. They were much more important than daily chores. I was the champion. I was the king. I was undefeated, 156 games and 0 losses. I was the champ. My opponent, my only opponent, my little sister, 10 years old, she had never beaten me. And I thought, well, this could be the moment of a lifetime for her. This could be a coming-of-age tale for her. This could be the formative years of her competitive life, the day that she turned the corner and beat her big brother for the first time. For the rest of her life, she could remember this event as the moment of triumph, the moment that she found herself. Maybe her grades would change from this point forward, and maybe she would graduate high school at the top of her class, and maybe she would receive scholarships to Ivy League schools and get involved in an East Coast sport like rowing. And then she could join the Olympic alternate team and write a successful novel about that. And then it would be a big success, and she would be interviewed by Oprah, and she could sit there on the couch with her and look in the camera and say that it all began that early evening, bottom of the 14th, sweaty and tense, when I beat my 16-year-old brother at our homemade baseball game. Now, true, I was 6 years older than her, but my little sister, she had a competitive streak that was like Attila the Hun reincarnated. She was mean and dirty, and she was smart and used every single tactic at her disposal. I would say, Jessica, could you please get out of the room? And she would be like, I am out of the room. See, the door is here. The line is here. I'm out. What you gonna do? Now, I didn't need to win. At that time, I was an accomplished high school athlete. I had 3 varsity letters in 3 different sports by the time I began my junior year, so I didn't need to win. But my little sister, with that competitiveness, who knows what sort of teasing, sadistic animal would have been unleashed. I didn't need to win, but there was no way that I could afford to lose. It was a game that we had invented. It was one-on-one, indoor, nerf, ping pong, baseball. We used nerf because it was a little squishy ball that was a little lighter than air, and it wouldn't break anything. And we had these big yellow paddles so we could always hit, and they were also light. So my being stronger wasn't a factor in my winning. The way to win at this game relied heavily on hitting the ball in unexpected areas and have it ricochet around the room like unstable electrons and land in some obscure area like underneath the couch or mixed in with some unfolded laundry, or my personal favorite, high up on the bookshelf where she couldn't reach it until she got smart and stacked up the couch cushions, and then she always got me out. Now, the way to get each other out was to throw that ball at each other. It was the only way to get each other out. And we had various landmarks as bases. We had the TV stand, we had the lampshade, bougainvillea. The bougainvillea plant was third. And when you got a single or a double, we would call ghost runners. And we all had our imaginary players. I, of course, had some of the best athletes in the world on my team, people like Roger Staubach and Jackie Robinson and Herschel Walker. My little sister had My Little Pony and E.T. and Raggedy Ann. Now, for this game, bottom of the 14th inning, I'm pitching and she's batting, and I'm staring her down. I took an extra long time, acting like I was shaking off the signs from the catcher, Walter Payton. See, in the past, the long pauses were too much for her. She would start giggling low and then laughing and shaking, and she would lose all sorts of concentration, and then I could slip a curveball right underneath her. But not today, man, not today. She was focused. She was intent. She was focused on hitting that ball and focused on bragging rights and maturity and Oprah Winfrey, even though she didn't know it. So I threw the pitch. She hit it. It ricocheted off the floor speaker and whizzed right past my face through a breezeway that led into the kitchen. Now, the kitchen, this was no man's land. No man's land. When it went in there, we usually stopped play and we declared a do-over because we were both equally scared to venture into the kitchen together. Especially when the kitchen had dirty dishes, and doubly scared when it was dark. Both dirty dishes and darkness meant that the cockroaches would be in full exploratory mode. We both hated cockroaches equally, and it was something that we had learned to associate with apartment living. And we empathized with each other's fear of these little critters, so we always stopped play, declared a do-over, and cautiously ventured in there together. The cockroaches had strength in numbers, we had strength in numbers. On this day, though, however, the adrenaline took over both of our lives. They were hanging in the balance, and we ignored the rule of no man's land. The ball was fair, the game was on, and all bets were off. Now, all I remember after the ball hit the speaker and whizzed past my face and went into the kitchen, I heard a plop. So I knew it would be in the sink. I thought, well, maybe it's in a bowl of leftover cereal milk or an iron skillet that had been soaking all day after last night's sloppy joes. It didn't matter. All I knew was that I had to get the ball. So in my socks, I stepped quickly but deliberately. And after a couple of crunchy, squishy steps, I slid into the sink. I felt around the water a couple of crunches back, and I got there, and I saw her just as she was rounding the bougainvillea. And I threw that soaked ball straight at the spot where I knew that she would go, home plate. And out of the corner of her eye, she saw me, and she shrieked and instinctually decided to slide. They arrived at the same time, the ball and my sweet little 10-year-old sister's face. And the ball hit her in the cheekbone, and it splashed all this sort of red and orange and greasy, slimy stuff all across her face and the wall behind her. It was like a still frame in a comic book, just psh. And all three of us stopped. My sister, me, and time. Because she was safe. We both knew it. And we had been so emotionally raw. In such a short period of time, we had experienced a huge range of emotions, anticipation and hopes and fear and death of the cockroaches and jubilation. And it was all held together by the greasy juices of last night's leftovers. And we would smell the cooked onions, and we'd start laughing all over again, crying and reliving the moment time and time again. And in our celebration, we hadn't noticed that the ceramic pot holding the bougainvillea had toppled over and chipped with potting soil spread all over the carpet. That's what Mom first noticed when she walked through the door holding 3 bags of Taco Bell. Time stopped again as my mother looked around the room and saw dolls everywhere and cushions stacked up high and soiled carpet and my sister's dirty face and countless undone chores. And she stood there and looked at us on the floor. And her aggression began to build and build. She was like a funnel cloud. And we sat there helpless, looking up at her, just like kind of like a city on the Great Plains, like Wichita, Kansas. And then finally, my sweet little sister looked up in her cute face, and she said, "But Mom, I was safe." Thank you.